Eagles Nation. It played out in that visiting locker room at Northwest Stadium in a way that tells you exactly where this team's head is right now. Hats and t-shirts were on, the ones that read "Been there, won that," a quiet but powerful statement about what it means to win the NFC East again, and to do it back-to-back for the first time in this division in 21 seasons. The Eagles had just secured the division title, clinched a playoff spot, and locked in a home postseason game, yet the energy in the room wasn't wild or chaotic. It was proud, focused, and grounded. You could feel the satisfaction, but you could also feel the restraint, the understanding that this moment is part of something bigger, not the destination itself. Brendan Graham put words to that mindset perfectly when he talked about this being just a step in the journey, a checkpoint rather than a finish line. That tone echoed around the room. Players allowed themselves to enjoy what they had just accomplished, but there was no mistaking the internal standard this team has set for itself. Saquon Barkley called it a big deal, and it is, but he immediately followed it with the reminder that the mindset has to be enjoy it briefly, then get right back to work. That balance between appreciation and urgency is not accidental. It's been built over time, and it shows up in moments like this, when success could easily soften an edge but instead seems to sharpen it. Nick Sirianni's presence looms large over all of this, and the history he's carving out is impossible to ignore. With this win, he became the first head coach in the Super Bowl era to take his team to the playoffs in each of his first 5 seasons, while also winning at least 3 division titles and a Super Bowl along the way. That victory over Washington was the 64th of his career, including the playoffs, tying him with Hall of Famer Greasy Neal for the second most wins in franchise history. Those are not small milestones, and they speak to a level of consistency that is incredibly hard to sustain in the NFL, especially in a division as volatile as the NFC East. Sirianni himself framed it in the right context. Yes, back-to-back division titles matter. Yes, being the first team to clinch a division this season matters. But in his words, the goals are much higher. He talked about raised expectations, about celebrating the night, giving the players a day off, and then immediately getting back to work to keep improving. That's the heartbeat of this team right now. They respect the history, they understand how rare it is to repeat in this division, but they're not satisfied by it. They're driven by what they believe they can still become. On the field, the performance against Washington backed up every bit of that confidence. The defense, less than a week after shutting out the Raiders, allowed just 220 total yards and 15 first downs. If not for a late touchdown, it would have been consecutive games without allowing a single point in the second half. That level of control, week to week, speaks to preparation, communication, and a unit that is playing in sync. Offensively, the balance was just as telling. Jalen Hurts threw 2 touchdown passes, finished with a 111.1 passer rating, and took care of the football. The run game was dominant, piling up 207 rushing yards, with Saquon Barkley leading the way for 132 of them. Barkley, in particular, continues to be a nightmare for Washington. He ran with power, vision, and emotion, breaking free for a 48-yard run in the fourth quarter after spinning out of a tackle in the backfield, a play that flipped the field and set up another Eagles touchdown. His own touchdown run, a 12-yard effort through traffic, was described by Jordan Mailata as an angry run, and Barkley didn't shy away from that label. He talked about getting fired up on the sideline, about holding each other accountable, and about finding that extra gear that puts him in his bag. That intensity is contagious, and you can see how it feeds the identity of this offense. Then there's Jalen Hurts, who continues to define stability at the quarterback position. 5 seasons as the starter, 5 playoff appearances, tying the longest streak in franchise history. He understands how rare these moments are, and he's intentional about soaking them in without losing focus. Over the last 2 games, his efficiency has been elite, completing 34 of 45 passes for 360 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 0 turnovers, while also adding significant production on the ground. The Eagles have scored 60 points in those wins, their most in consecutive games since before the October bye week, and it all reflects a quarterback who knows how to adapt, sequence the offense, and play complementary football. Hurts talked about how every game requires a different approach, about being smart with sequencing, adjustments, and execution. That flexibility is becoming a defining trait of this team. They can lean on play action, go under center, spread things out, or pound the ball when necessary. It's not about one formula, it's about finding the right answers week by week. And when you combine that adaptability with a defense that's limiting yards and points, you start to see why this team believes it's playing its best football at the right time. Dallas Goedert's season is another perfect example of that balance between individual achievement and team-first mentality. His touchdown catch on 3rd and goal from the 15-yard line tied the Eagles' record for most touchdowns by a tight end in a single season, matching Pete Retzlaff with 10. Yet when he talked about it, the focus stayed on staying healthy, being available, and helping the team win whenever his number is called. Sirianni highlighted what makes Goedert so valuable in the red zone: strength, versatility, and the ability to score in multiple ways, whether it looks like a pass or effectively functions as a run. All of this comes together to paint a clear picture of where the Eagles are right now. They're celebrating a meaningful accomplishment, but they're not lingering on it. They're confident, but not complacent. They're historically accomplished, yet driven by unfinished business. As the playoffs come into sharper focus, this team believes it's building momentum, stacking good habits, and sharpening its identity on both sides of the ball. From the locker room tone to the on-field execution, everything points to a group that understands exactly what this moment represents and what still lies ahead. With that in mind, how do you feel about the way this team is handling success right now? And do you believe this mindset is what can carry them through the postseason? The most telling part of all of this is not just what the Eagles are doing, but how they are doing it, and more importantly, how they are talking about it internally. There's a maturity in the language coming from this locker room that reflects a team that has been through deep postseason runs and understands how fragile momentum can be if it's not handled correctly. You hear it every time someone brings up the division title. No one dismisses it, no one downplays it, but no one treats it like a final achievement either. It is acknowledged, respected, and then immediately placed in context as one chapter of a longer story. That perspective is critical, especially when you consider how dominant stretches like this can sometimes lead to complacency. The Eagles are very aware of that trap. Nick Sirianni's message about accountability and relentless attention to detail isn't coach speak in this moment. It's a reflection of how this team is operating week to week. He talked about teams either coming together or drifting apart over the course of a season, and right now, everything points to a group that is tightening its bonds at the right time. That cohesion shows up in execution, in communication, and in the way different units are feeding off each other. Defensively, the consistency has been striking. Holding Washington to 220 total yards and 15 first downs is not just about talent, it's about discipline and trust. The near back-to-back second-half shutouts tell you this defense is finishing games with purpose. They're not relaxing when they have a lead, they're locking in even more. That kind of closing ability becomes invaluable in the playoffs, where margins are thinner and every possession matters. The defense isn't just reacting anymore, it's dictating terms, forcing offenses to play uncomfortable football. On the offensive side, the balance continues to define this group. The rushing attack, led by Saquon Barkley, has become a tone setter. When Barkley talks about getting fired up, holding teammates accountable, and channeling that emotion into his running style, you can see how that physical edge spreads across the offense. His 132-yard performance wasn't just productive, it was demoralizing for the opponent. Those long runs, especially the 48-yarder in the fourth quarter, don't just move the ball, they drain belief from the other sideline. Jalen Hurts remains the steady center of it all. What stands out most is not just the efficiency or the numbers, but the intentionality behind his approach. He understands that these moments are rare, that sustained success in the NFL is never guaranteed. His emphasis on keeping the main thing speaks to a quarterback who knows that leadership is as much about mindset as it is about arm talent. The way he described sequencing plays, adjusting week to week, and embracing different offensive identities shows a deep understanding of the game plan and his role within it. That adaptability makes the Eagles difficult to predict and even harder to defend. Dallas Goedert's role further reinforces that identity. Tying a franchise record for touchdowns by a tight end is significant, but what makes it more impactful is how those scores are coming. 3rd and goal from the 15-yard line, contested catches, physical finishes. These are momentum-swinging plays that change games. Sirianni's description of Goedert as a player who can score in so many different ways highlights why he's such a problem in the red zone. He embodies the physical, unselfish style this offense wants to play with when space tightens and pressure rises. When you step back and look at the full picture, the Eagles don't feel like a team chasing form, they feel like a team that has found it. They are playing complementary football, winning in different ways, and stacking performances that reinforce belief rather than create pressure. The division title didn't inflate expectations inside the building, it confirmed them. The playoffs are no longer an abstract future event, they are a clear and present reality, and the Eagles are approaching them with confidence grounded in preparation, not hype. This is why the tone coming out of that locker room matters so much. The shirts said been there, won that, but the conversation said something even louder. There's more work to be done. There is more football to be played, and there is a clear understanding that the best version of this team is still ahead if they continue to do things the right way. That belief, shared from the head coach to the veteran leaders to the stars on the field, is what makes this moment feel different and dangerous for anyone standing in their path. What makes this stretch even more compelling is how layered the confidence feels. This isn't a team riding emotion or chasing highlights. It's a group that understands its own standards and measures success internally before the outside noise ever has a chance to matter. Winning the NFC East again didn't change who they think they are. It validated the work they've been putting in since training camp. That distinction is important, because validation strengthens habits, while hype can distract from them. Right now, everything about this team suggests the habits are winning. You can see it in the way preparation translates directly to execution. The Eagles aren't just starting fast or finishing strong, they're doing both. Early in games, they establish physicality and tempo, and late in games, they show patience and control. That's how you close out division-clinching wins without drama. That's how you turn opportunities into statements. And that's exactly what happened against Washington. The game never felt rushed, never felt out of control. It felt managed, intentional, and authoritative. The leadership core plays a massive role in that. Veterans like Brandon Graham setting the tone about unfinished business, skill players like Saquon Barkley demanding accountability on the sideline, and Jalen Hurts consistently reinforcing a day-by-day mindset. Those voices matter because they align. There's no mixed messaging. Everyone is pulling in the same direction, speaking the same language, reinforcing the same expectations. That unity becomes a competitive advantage when pressure increases, and the playoffs are nothing but pressure. Another element that can't be overlooked is how adaptable this team has become without losing its identity. The Eagles can lean into the run game when needed, control the clock, and physically wear teams down. They can also be efficient and precise through the air, letting Hurts distribute the ball and protect possessions. The defense can attack, disguise, and suffocate, or it can sit back, stay disciplined, and force long drives that eventually stall. That versatility makes game planning against this team incredibly difficult, because there isn't one obvious weakness to exploit. As the postseason approaches, that adaptability becomes even more valuable. Every opponent brings a different challenge. Every game demands a different solution. The Eagles have shown they're not married to one approach. They're committed to doing whatever it takes to win that specific matchup. That mindset, combined with execution, is what separates good teams from legitimate contenders. The division title, the history, the records, all of it is meaningful. But what makes this moment exciting is the sense that this team knows exactly who it is. They're not chasing an identity, they're living it. They're not hoping to peak, they believe they're building toward it. And if that belief continues to translate on the field the way it has recently, this season still has chapters left that could be remembered for a long time. There is also something important happening beneath the surface that doesn't always show up immediately in box scores or headlines, and that is the emotional control of this team. Great playoff teams know when to press and when to stay calm, and right now the Eagles are showing that balance. You see intensity without panic, confidence without arrogance. Even in moments where emotion rises, like on the sideline during Barkley's big runs or after a defensive stop, it quickly resets back to focus. That emotional discipline is learned, and it usually comes from experiencing both success and disappointment together over time. This is where the continuity of this group really matters. Many of these players have shared locker rooms in high-stakes situations. They've felt the weight of expectations. They've navigated weeks where nothing came easy and weeks where things clicked. That shared history creates trust, and trust is what allows a team to stay composed when games tighten late or when momentum swings unexpectedly. You can sense that trust in how they play for each other, how assignments are handled, and how mistakes are corrected without visible frustration. Another layer to this story is how the Eagles are winning without needing everything to be perfect. They're not chasing flawless performances. They're chasing efficient ones. That's why Hurts' lack of turnovers stands out so much. That's why the defense limiting yards matters as much as splash plays. This team values possession, field position, and situational football. Third downs, red zone execution, second half adjustments. Those details don't dominate highlight reels, but they decide playoff games. And that brings the conversation back to expectations. Inside the building, the expectation is no longer just to be competitive in January. The expectation is to be dangerous. That's a subtle but powerful shift. You hear it in Sirianni's words about raised standards. You see it in how quickly celebrations end and preparation begins. This is a team that understands opportunity windows in the NFL don't stay open forever, and when you have one, you attack it with urgency and clarity. The division title gave them proof of concept, proof that their approach works, proof that their structure holds up, proof that they can impose their will on meaningful games. But proof is not fulfillment. That's the line they're walking right now, and so far, they're walking it well. The next stretch will test depth, resilience, and adaptability even more, but the foundation looks solid, and the mindset looks aligned. As this season continues to unfold, every game will add new context to what this team really is. But based on what we're seeing right now, the Eagles are not just entering the postseason as champions of the NFC East, they're entering it as a team that believes its best football still hasn't been played. And that belief, when backed by preparation and execution, is what makes a team truly dangerous. What stands out most as you let all of this settle is how intentional everything feels. Nothing about this run feels accidental or fragile. The Eagles are not relying on one hot streak, one matchup advantage, or one player carrying the load. They are relying on structure, discipline, and a shared understanding of how they want to play football. That kind of foundation doesn't crack easily when conditions get tougher, and conditions are about to get much tougher. The playoffs demand clarity. They expose hesitation, punish mistakes, and amplify every weakness. The Eagles seem aware of that reality without being intimidated by it. You hear it in the way players talk about details, about being present, about staying connected. You see it in the way drives are finished, and how leads are protected, and how adjustments are made from half to half. This team is not searching for answers in real time. They are executing plans that have been built, tested, and reinforced over weeks. There is also a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can win different types of games. If a game turns physical, this team is comfortable there. If it turns tactical, they can slow it down and manage it. If it requires patience, they have shown patience. If it requires aggression, they have shown that too. That flexibility removes fear. You don't walk into the postseason hoping the game unfolds a certain way. You walk in believing you can handle whatever shows up. That belief doesn't guarantee anything, and this team knows that better than most. But it does change how you approach every snap. It changes how you respond to adversity. It changes how quickly you recover from mistakes.